Eyewitnesses claimed they saw warriors of light descend from the heavens, their swords flashing brighter than fire. This is the forgotten battle, when angels defended Jerusalem against impossible odds. It was the year 701 BC. The Assyrian army, the mightiest force of its time, had conquered every city in its path. Now, they stood at the gates of Jerusalem. Inside the city, King Hezekiah prayed desperately. The walls shook with the sound of war drums. The Assyrian commander sent a messenger to mock the people, saying, "No God can save you from our power." But the people of Jerusalem refused to surrender. Their hope was not in weapons, but in the God of Israel. That night, the city slept uneasily, expecting the enemy to attack at dawn. But something was about to happen, something that would be spoken of for thousands of years. What do you think? Could angels truly appear in battle? Tell me your answer in the comments below. The Assyrian army prepared silently in the dark, confident they would crush Jerusalem. But then, a strange wind began to blow across the battlefield. The guards on Jerusalem's walls saw figures of light moving among the enemy camp. The Assyrian soldiers began to scream, and then silence. By morning, 185,000 soldiers lay still, without a single arrow fired from Jerusalem. The Assyrian king, terrified, fled back to Nineveh, never to threaten Jerusalem again. Jerusalem was safe, not because of walls or swords, but because the Lord had sent his angels. If you want more stories of faith and history, subscribe to the Bible Stories and press the bell icon, so you never miss the next chapter. This was not the first time God had defended his people, nor would it be the last. Even in the darkest moments, light can break through, if you know where to place your trust. As the first rays of sunlight touched the walls of Jerusalem, the city gates opened cautiously. Scouts stepped into the battlefield, expecting to see an army ready for attack. Instead, they found silence, and the cold bodies of warriors who had been breathing only hours before. The air felt heavy, as if heaven itself had passed through in the night. The priests and elders came out, walking among the abandoned siege towers and chariots. They saw provisions, gold, and weapons, untouched. No sign of human battle. It was as though the enemy had been struck down by an invisible hand. The soldiers of Jerusalem whispered in awe, their voices trembling as they realized what had truly happened. King Hezekiah stepped forward, his sandals touching the bloodless earth. He raised his hands toward the sky, tears in his eyes. "The Lord has heard us," he said. In that moment, Jerusalem was not just a city that survived, it was a living testimony that heaven fights for those who trust in him completely. Messengers were sent across the land to spread the news. From the hills of Judah to the distant villages, people heard of the miracle. Songs were sung, and children were told that in one night, God's mighty warriors had defended their home. No one could deny it, this was a victory unlike any seen before. Meanwhile, in the Assyrian capital of Nineveh, news of the disaster reached King Sennacherib. His generals stood silent, their faces pale. The king's pride turned to rage, and then to fear. He had faced rebellions and wars before, but never had his army vanished without a single sword clash. Something beyond human power had stopped him. For the people of Jerusalem, life slowly returned to normal. Markets reopened, trade resumed, and families rebuilt what had been damaged. But deep in every heart was the memory of that night, the night when unseen warriors walked among them. Some swore they had heard the clash of swords in the wind, though no enemy entered the gates. The story was written down by scribes, carefully preserved for generations. They described the angels as beings clothed in light, their faces like fire, and their voices like rushing water. These were not ordinary messengers, they were warriors from the very throne of God, sent to carry out his command in a single night. Some travelers from distant lands came to Jerusalem just to see where the miracle had taken place. They walked the battlefield in silence, collecting fragments of broken shields and helmets, telling each other that this ground had been touched by something divine. The land itself seemed to whisper of that mysterious night. Years later, fathers would still take their sons to the walls and point toward the hills, saying, "That is where the mighty fell without a battle." The young ones would ask, "How?" And the answer was always the same, because the Lord fights for his people. That truth became their greatest weapon for generations to come. Some doubters claimed it was a plague, others said it was poison in the Assyrian water. But the people who were there knew better. They remembered the strange light, the sound of rushing wind, and the feeling of a presence greater than any army. To them, there was no question, the angels had come. Prophets in the city reminded the people that this was not a victory to boast about, but a reminder to remain faithful. God had shown his power not to glorify men, but to protect his promise. Those who turned away from him would lose that shield, no matter how strong their walls seemed. Merchants began to carve the event into stone tablets, selling them to travelers as keepsakes. Each carving showed angelic warriors standing over fallen enemies. These artifacts traveled far beyond the borders of Judah, carrying the story to lands that had never heard the name Jerusalem before. Over time, the tale of the angelic army became a symbol of hope for those facing overwhelming odds. Farmers whispered it during droughts, soldiers remembered it before battles, and mothers told it to children in the dark, when fear crept too close. The story became part of their blood. Even the ruins of the Assyrian camp remained untouched for years. No one dared to claim the weapons or gold left behind. People said it was cursed, a reminder of what happens when human pride challenges the power of heaven. Centuries later, historians would still debate what happened that night. But the people of faith needed no explanation. They knew it was the hand of God, and they knew the angels had walked among men. That was enough for them, and their trust remained unshaken. Today, the walls of Jerusalem stand rebuilt and strong, but the real strength of the city is not in stone or steel. It is in the memory of that night, the forgotten battle where heaven met earth, and the impossible became reality. Whenever you feel surrounded by problems, remember Jerusalem. Remember the night when no weapon could save, yet victory still came. Sometimes, the greatest battles are won without lifting a single sword, when faith is your only shield. The Assyrian king, once feared by nations, was later struck down in his own temple by his own sons. His empire would never again reach the power it once had. History moved on, but the story of that night remained, a shadow over every enemy who thought to challenge the God of Israel. And so, Jerusalem continued to stand, generation after generation. Kings rose and fell, wars came and went, but the story of the angelic defense was never forgotten. It became more than history, it became a promise that God still watches over his people. In the quiet of the temple, priests still sang the same psalms that were sung that morning after the battle. Their voices echoed through the marble halls, a sound that had once reached the very gates of heaven in a desperate plea for help. Travelers still pause at the walls of Jerusalem, running their hands along the ancient stones. Some say they can feel a strange warmth there, as if the memory of that night has soaked into the very rock. Pilgrims whisper prayers, asking for the same protection that saved the city so many centuries ago. The elders tell the young, never forget the miracle. If you forget, you will believe it was human strength that saved us. And so, the story is told again and again, not just to remember the past, but to keep faith alive for the future. Even in distant lands, bards and poets speak of the night Jerusalem was surrounded but not broken. The tale has crossed seas and deserts, taking root in places that had never seen the city. In every version, the ending is the same: the angels came, and the enemy fell. The forgotten battle remains a warning to those who believe power comes only from armies and weapons. Strength can vanish in a single night, but those who trust in God carry a fortress within them that no enemy can breach. Jerusalem has faced many sieges since that night. Some were won, others lost. But in every generation, there are moments when the people look to the heavens and remember that once, long ago, heaven itself fought for them. The battlefield outside the city has long been covered by grass and stone. Travelers walk over it without knowing the story beneath their feet. But the earth remembers, and perhaps, one day, it will echo the sound of rushing wind once more. In dark times, people gather in the city's oldest synagogue, lighting candles and telling the tale. The flames dance like the swords of the angels, reminding them that even in the shadow of death, light will always find a way. Some say the angels never truly left, that they watch silently from the hills, waiting for the moment they are called again. Perhaps they stand there now, unseen but ready, their swords gleaming in the light of eternity. This was not just a story of a city. It was the story of a promise kept, of a God who listens, and of a people who refuse to give in to fear. The forgotten battle will never truly be forgotten, not while there is someone left to tell it. You have just heard the forgotten story of when angels defended Jerusalem. If you believe more people should know this, share this video. And remember, the greatest victories are often fought in silence, when heaven moves on behalf of those who trust. This is the Bible Stories. Until next time, stay blessed.